Hi, guys. Okay, it is the night after Christmas, and I don't know many people are going to show up. We shall see. But I had said I was going to be here, so here I am. A lot of people don't show up or nobody shows up. That's fine. We'll make it quick and easy. Tiny Titan, good evening. Hope the weather's doing pretty good for you out there. Stephen Ladrain, good evening. Keep all three, good evening. Craig, Christmas was really good. Which at our age, me and my wife, we don't get all upset about a lot of that stuff. We ain't got grandkids to worry about, so it went really well. I tell her, just give me a list of what you want, and I'll make it happen. And then her hard thing is figuring out something I want, because if I want it, I got it, and most stuff I don't need. And so she will pick something frivolous and fun, or she will actually try to find something useful. Usually, it's a little bit of a mix of the two. So, Justin, good evening. James Singer, good evening. Ansley Gilmore, good evening. Imperfect Smoke Box Creations, awesome. Fishing Golf, warm in Illinois. Yeah, ain't it weird? It's flipping the other way around. It went cold and wet, and now it's going warm and back and forth. Twister, hello. Diane, good evening. Two Guys Nose Arch, good evening. 2020. Yeah, it was pretty good, actually. Wayne, hello to Australia. Yeah, Australia. Thank you very much for watching. Jeff, hello to cold and rainy Newfoundland. It's about 52 here, and it's been raining off and on all day. But now in Texas, they're getting hammered out there with severe weather, so I hope they're going to be okay. Sassy, hello there. Hiking 72, Merry Christmas. And Merry Christmas to Sassy. Dead Prepper, do you go cowboy camping? I don't. I know what you're talking about, but I don't. Bedroll horse, that type deal. When I was younger, I sure wanted to. I did work off the back of a horse as a young man for a while on a cattle ranch. For one summer, I rode fence and repaired fence on horseback and that type of stuff. So I did enjoy it. Loved riding, but hadn't done it in so many years now. The horse better be smarter than me now. Feliz Navidad, thank you. Common Sense Karen, hello there. Blue Bandit, hello to L.A. Rebecca, hello. Gerald Martin, hello to New Jersey. Y'all going to have to excuse me. I had pneumonia a little bit of a week ago, and I'm recovering from it. And I'm to that tickle down in the lungs. All the symptoms are gone, and it's clear. What's coming up is clear, but it's that now it's got a little moist and everything, and I got that cough. So y'all just going to have to excuse me. Jeff, 35 and raining. Mike Simmons, good evening, sir. Oh, yeah, Imperfect, getting a draw knife. Those are handy. I've got mine over there, and I'm going to be playing around with it here pretty soon. I'm in the crunch right now, guys, because now I've only got about 8 weeks. I got January and February to do any of the cold winter stuff I was planning on doing. And after that, it warms back up down here in the South. So if I'm going to do it, I got 8 weeks. I got to get off the dang butt and get going, so I got to get cooking. So Andy Knight, good evening to South Georgia. Michael Slater, good evening. Thank you. And Gavin, hello to you too. Too early to tap into some maple trees. Yeah, a little bit. Sap will not be running quite yet. Excuse me. Yeah, Mr. Giant, it's going to be in the 70s. They're predicting 75, 76 here, Saturday or Sunday. And the low will be like 60. Warm heat coming off the Gulf is going to warm us right back up. Lonnie, hello to Pennsylvania. 56 and rainy in northwest Arkansas. Wayne, thank you very much. Dead Prepper, can you make a video showing the uses of a draw knife? I will write that down on the new list I'm starting right now. And talk about the uses of a draw knife. There's certain jobs it falls into that it is the perfect one, especially when you're peeling down thin layers, or you're wanting, if you got really soft wood, you can use it to make like feather sticks with it and make thin kindling, just hook it and pull it to you and it'll bust. A lot of times we used to get scrap lumber, like old pallets and stuff, and we'd use a draw knife on a draw horse and turn it into stuff, put into wood stoves and stuff like that. It made life a whole lot easier and quicker than chopping everything. Blue Bandit, eating lemon pie. Good lemon pie makes you pucker up now. My mom made a really good lemon pie that most people couldn't eat, but I could. I don't eat lemons, and I don't drink a lot of lemon juice, but I love that lemon pie. But it was so tart, and it'd get you. And I loved it. 2020. Blackie, if you run short of winter, I'll send you some. Yeah, I hear you. Well, same thing. You run short of summer, let me know. I'll be glad to give you some. Charles, good evening from Houston. Y'all be safe out there. You got a lot of rumblings going on out there tonight. Taxman, good evening. Oh, cool. You had an uncle named Blackie. Awesome. Trooper, glad to see you back. Glad to be here. Thank you. Charles, Blackie, how are you tonight? I'm doing really good. Just got this thing cough, but I'll admit that yesterday I was lazy. Bottom line. My wife went to spend the day with her brother. We did our Christmas Eve when we went and did exchange presents and did the cooking with some friends of ours. And then on Saturday, she went and spent the day with her brother, and I stayed home. And Blackie decided, I ain't got to get out of bed today. And I didn't. I hadn't had a day where I didn't get out of bed in 7-8 months. And so I just said, screw it, I'm staying in bed. And so I woke up at one point, ran to the bathroom, came back, grabbed the cell phone, turned it on, and let it go ding, 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 ding. About 200 something times people sending me Merry Christmas emails. And then I sat there and replied to everybody, and I took a nap. I didn't really get out of bed till last night, only because I was sick of laying there. But I thought, I haven't had just a lazy day. And so that's what my Christmas present to me was, a lazy day. You don't have to get up. You don't have to mess with nothing. So that's what I did. Dipping a hook. Hello to AR, Arkansas. Blackie, do you have the SRO 40? No, I have an actual Swedish 40, but they're virtually identical. And I have held the Pathfinder one up to mine and compared them, and they are, for all practical purposes, identical. So if you look at my videos where I'm making modifications and stuff, anything I could do with mine, you can do with the Pathfinder. But the Pathfinder is really good, cheaper, because my kits, when I was picking them up, they were $25 a piece. Good God, now the Swiss versions are, the stainless steel ones are like $140, $150 a piece, and the dang aluminum ones are like $70 and $80. So the Pathfinder is a much better deal. You can get it under $50. So yeah, much better deal. What size kukri do you prefer and why? I think the blade on mine is like 14 inches, 13, 14 inches. And that's about the size that I prefer. Excuse me. Happen to have it in the bucket right there. That's about the size I prefer. It's thicker. This is called a panel wall, because you see the two things, it's a full tang. If you see two bolts there, whatever, that's a panel wall, which means full tang. And it's a champura, which basically means chopper. See how wide the blade is and how thick the blade is. And so think hatchet. That's what I prefer with mine. I got my bucket sitting over there before I did the class down at the Rewild Outdoors with excuse me, the kukri class. Okay, let me see if I can catch back up. Okay. Oh, it's not LA. Got you. Have you ever packed bag bomb and your carry on when you camp? I have not, but I know what you're talking about, and it can be very useful. Bag bomb is very good for chafing and all kinds of other stuff, so it could be very useful. I haven't, but it would be a very good choice in many ways. Matt, how was your Christmas? It went very well. Thank you. Charles, you like my video at Kaufman's? Thank you very much. I just can't do that place justice, really. I mean, you can go in there and spend, excuse me, 2 hours doing nothing but digging and find all kinds of stuff. You just never know what you're going to find. And as soon as I think, okay, there is not another blah, 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 and then poof, I found an antique sleeping bag. Remember that video I did? That last trip I went down there, there was an antique sleeping bag in there. So I got it, I dug it out, and James Bender's getting that. Gordon, hello. Donald Mike, hello. Tim Pierce, good evening. Hiking Mike, hello there from Florida. Cool. 2 mess kits with utensils, $15 each. That's a good deal. It really is. Blackie Tomcat, cool. Yeah, I had somebody the other day tell them they had a black cat they named Blackie for that reason. That showed up at their house, and they were sitting there watching one of my videos, and this black kitten came up on the back doorstep, and they decided to name it Blackie because of that. So cool. Hello, Harold. Hello to Virginia. Brandy, happy holidays. Oh yeah, Montgomery Ward. Oh cool. Yeah, you like the cooking I did the other day. Well, thank you. Oh sure. Dead Prepper. Um, Email me at scalphunter36330 at yahoo.com, and I'll give you my address so you can mail that to me. Gordon, I have not heard of those adapters. Now, I have a couple of adapters, but I have not seen those. 12 gauge 357 maximum, that would be awesome. 357 maximum just about produces like, it's in one of the 30s. I know it's better than a 35 Remington, which beats a 30-30 in power when you put it into a rifle. So, dipping the hook. I'm in Lower Alabama, is where I'm at. Yeah, hike with Mike. Me and my wife couldn't have kids when we take in fur babies. They just show up. We've never had to buy a cat or dog. They just show up. And the hard part is having to say no when you got too many and you can't take another, and they show up. So the yellow cat you saw in my videos for several years, Amarillo, who just walked up. I was doing a video and he hopped up in my lap and said hi. Never seen this cat before, and he ended up. Took him to the vet and etc. And he came in, became part of the life, and he finally died of old age after a few years. And now this other yellow cat has showed up here in the last week. And there's no doubt in my mind that's one of his offspring because the markings and everything is the same. And so either that or we got resurrected cats walking around. So John Moore, hello to Ohio. Anonymous, what about a series on wedges? I was talking about that the other day about making. I don't like the baton knife. And so we were talking about how would you split something bigger if all you have is a knife? I'd make a hardwood wedge. I would take the knife to start a line, and then I'd put the hardwood wedges on there and beat it with a baton and split the wood with it. So I might need, yeah, let me do that video. Because I talked about with somebody the other day, we were talking on the phone about that, to show how you can just whittle one and split big wood, just a bunch of little wedges and a hammer, I mean a whacker, and you're good. The stove on the Pathfinder 40 is better, being stainless. It can take the heat when used as a twig stove. That is correct, and it does hold the heat better. It doesn't warp as easy as the old aluminum of the original heat one. Oh, Wayne, yeah, Bones Score. Got it. David Denny, hello there. Okay. Christopher, Blackie, did you get any new gear for Christmas? Mrs. Blackie bought me an inflatable mattress that's designed to go in the back of a Pathfinder. So, you know, I've been sleeping in the back of the Pathfinder, but it's got the two big things that go down in the holes where the edge of the seat is to make it one big mattress. I haven't tried it out yet. We shall see how it works, but I was kind of happy with my two, you know, thermarests. I got two thermarests, the thick ones, and I put them into a MS Sleep System bivy cover that keeps them from sliding apart. That was the only problem I had with them before. If you try to lay one on top of the other, there's a slick they'd slide out from under you during the night. Well, this way it holds them in one place. I ain't got a choice, and it's that thick whenever I get it fully inflated. So that's what I was using, but Mrs. Blackie found that, and so I will give it a try. Ah, very true. Fat wood makes a good wedge. Yes, fat wood makes very good. The best wedges is made by Sparkleberry, because once they dry, they are hard as iron. It's one I talk about in a lot of videos. I talk about tool wood. And if you look in the book of Peterson's Book of Trees and you look up Sparkleberry, it's a division of hawthorn, and it's really the biggest blueberry bush. And it does create blueberries, but they're not, they're technically edible, but they are not palatable to us. But you find them all over the pastures and stuff down here where I'm at, but it's a gnarly bush that just goes everywhere. But the wood, once you shape it when it's green, it ain't even soft. It's like cutting oak whenever it's green. But once it hardens, you know, I showed that baton a while back that I'd used, that killing baton. That thing's 30, 40 years old, 30, 35 years old, and I'm still using it as a tool. So, you know, make wedges out of that. Yeah, you can split just about anything with that. Ed, you'd like to see an in-depth video on Swiss Army knife. I've talked about doing a series called Pocket Knife Bushcraft, is what I'm thinking of doing, and showing different pocket knives and what they can do, as well as Swiss Army knives, but other things like, you know, a buck 110, you know, a 3-blade Stockman, you know, showing you that you can do a lot of stuff with just a pocket knife. Where, yeah, having that big belt knife is such an advantage, but it ain't necessarily the only way to go. And if you realize your strengths and limitations, you can get away with a pocket knife. God knows I did with a buck 110 for years, where I hadn't got into quote bushcraft, and I didn't have a fancy bushcraft knife. I had a pocket knife, and I had a machete or a hatchet for splitting wood, and the pocket knife did everything else. KH2837, thank you very much. It kind of scared me too, but thank you very much. Harold, yes, you can. You can split logs and make lumber. At least something to work with that you can then plane off to be something more usable. Archer, good evening. Yeah, she's giving me a subtle hint there. Thank you, Tony. Tom, hello. Osage orange is pretty hard, true. But really, if you ever try sparkleberry, that is here in the South the hardest wood I know of. Once it dries, it's like hard rock maple. In fact, I had somebody that had come to an event, and he was out of Maine, and he did spoon carving. He had a channel back in them days, and he was doing. Thank you very much, Leo. And he was doing spoon carving, and I showed him a piece of sparkleberry, not meaning for him to try to make a spoon. And he decided he wanted to try to make a spoon. I told him, I said, I wouldn't try to do it once it's hard. This is hard. Oh no, I carve maple all the time. And he went through 5 of his spoon knives. They got so dull, he had to just lay it aside and get another one. It took 5 spoon knives and 45 minutes for him to make a rough spoon out of that stuff. And he told me when he handed it to me, he said, it's like carving concrete. I said, yeah, I know. This little piece right here is probably 2 years old. It's dry. But if you've done it when it's green, and then you let it dry and harden, man, it wears forever. It's we call it tool wood. Cow tipper, hello. Christopher Evans, yeah, there's a lot of possibility with it. Prepared for, well, glad to be of help. Blue Bandit, I'm sorry, they've changed something YouTube did. And where I was clicking, no monetization, it won't accept it now. It's going to monetize it where I like it or not. So I'm trying to find some way to block that. But I'm sorry it keeps popping up. Anonymous, yeah, the Star, there is a company that's talking about bringing the Star back. But the problem with the Star was it was a weak design when it was, and so it is not a gun that handles well to hard use or fast use. And double action, when the Army, in fact, told them after the first run of the double actions, get rid of the double action, just give us a single action, because they would get out of time, they would break parts, bend parts, and they went to the straight single action. And that one was okay in military use, but still definitely a third choice between the Colt and the Remingtons. Cool. Dead Wolf. Yeah, the Cold Steel kukris are actually fairly decent kukris. Anonymous, the problem with the LeMat is, and I did a video talking about the LeMat, is the loading lever is weak as all get out. It scared me. I borrowed that gun and I was scared to load it. I loaded 2 rounds using the loading lever, and I was sure it was just going to shear off the gun. It's just a poor loading design. And that's reason so many of the originals are missing the loading levers. But if I just took the cylinder off and loaded it off on the table instead of trying to load it on the gun, that is the weakness of all the LeMats, is that loading lever. If it had had a loading lever kind of like a Colt, it'd have been all right. But otherwise, that I've shot them several times, played with them, other guns that people own several times, and that was my number one fear, is I'm going to just, because all that power is going into that one screw. It ain't even a housing like holding it on 2 sides. It's just a screw going through it. And and all that power trying to crush that lid in there. You find so many of the originals where it's just sheared off and the bolts broke off down inside of it. And Hike with Mike. Yes, it does grow in Florida. Bang Bang Bushcraft, doing good. It does grow down there. You find it in a lot of cow pastures. And Hawthorne is a variation of it. Give me 1 second. Grab a flashlight. All righty. We will now adjourn over to our seeing glasses that are not for looking at the computer, but for reading. Okay. In the Book of Trees. All right. Okay, it's going to be under Hawthorne. 1 second. Where's it? Hornbeam. One 4 7. Uh, 596. I will find it. I know I got it marked in here. And give you the official name of that thing, because I've mentioned it so many times. And it does grow. Everywhere down here in the south. All right, that's wood. No. It's a variation of hawthorn. HW. Try that one. Hawthorn. Okay. 474. You know, when Granddaddy, you'd say something, Granddaddy'd grab a book and have to do this. Well, yep, that's me too. It lists all the other names it's known by. Well, I'm going to have to just look that up in a better light, and I will have it for next time, because I know I've got it marked in here. I swear it was in the thing by that name. Yes, SP. Doop. There we are. 206-424. I got it. It's listed by name. 424. Okay. It's in the elm family. Okay. All right, now I know what I just read. Y'all, I know. I'm sorry I'm taking so much time, guys. You understand? I'm old. Sparkleberry tree, 206, 424, and 629. We'll look at 629. See if it knows by that name. Tree, sparkleberry. Yeah, see, there it is. Tree, sparkleberry. Also known as sparkleberry, tree huckleberry. A shrub tree with short trunk, irregular crown. This is the tallest of the genus of blueberries, often called huckleberry. The fruit thin, although not palatable to humans, the berries are consumed by wildlife all over the south. See the thing right there. So that's what you're looking for. This is on a National Audubon Society book, and it's page 629. Sparkleberry. Ha. The old man has not gone stark raving crazy. That's one of the things when you're trying to identify stuff is they'll have local names that people call it by, and then you get out and look in the book and it's completely different, you know. So let's see what's going on up here now. I'll catch back up a minute. Yes, getting close to the 100,000 subscribers. I hope to do that pretty soon. Dale, good evening. Greg Barton, thank you very much. Have I made a decision on HangCon in Florida next month? I'm a little bit on the fence on it. I really do. I got several friends going down there to hang out at it, and they've invited me to come down and hang out. I don't know. Let me just give me a couple more days and let me see if I can do it or not. You know, I've been doing so many long trips here lately. And so let me see what Mrs. got something planned in the middle of January. If not, I may do it. If I am, I will announce it to everybody. Andy Knight, Blackie, have you ever thought about publishing a book on your percussion revolver series? I have. And that kind of like the ultimate goal of that series is that will be transferred into a book format down the line. We shall see. Cool. Charles Martin, what do you think about the idea of adding a pocket under the back of the M65 field jacket the size of one of the reusable space blankets? It would work, you know, and I have seen modifications to field jackets between the liner and the body. I have seen them get in there, turn the jacket inside out and stitch in another line, a pocket into the liner, so they could turn the jacket inside out, slide a pad in, and turn the jacket back, and their back would have, like, you know, like you think of a bulletproof vest have an armor plate, but they'd have some sort of pad in there for them to lean back on in construction and stuff like that, because you could be leaning back against big old girders and stuff, and it's very cold, and that would cold transfer. They put pads in, so there wouldn't be any problem putting one in like that to be able to slide a blanket in of some kind to use. If you'll do a search for M65 modifications, you'll find where Special Forces would take them and add pockets for everything. I mean, clips, machine guns, everything, so that you couldn't see it on the outside. It would be hidden, so they could be walking in public and you wouldn't know they're carrying all this stuff underneath that jacket, because it'd be sewed to the inside of the jacket. There's all kinds of stuff you can do with it. All right, let's see where I was at. Lambo and Doc, thank you very much. Johnny, yes, Sparkleberry. Anonymous, yeah, if the Colt wedge was an inch longer, you could change it out with a knife or something. Yeah, but that was the whole thing. Colt had designed that wedge to be the sacrificial part, because he realized in his design how much power was being transferred where the cylinder wanted to go backwards and the barrel wanted to go away from it. And so that wedge in between has to hold them. And so it's getting forces going in two directions at once, you know, trying to pull that barrel and that base pin apart. And that had to be the sacrificial part, because if you hardened it, you made a real hard wedge and you put it in there, then it would peen the opening inside of the base pin, and it would flare out and wedge in there, and you couldn't get the barrel off. You'd have to take a file and keep cutting it, and it would keep wedging out. So the wedge was meant to be the sacrificial part and be soft. And you could make it a little, get them blacksmithing day to make one a little longer if you wanted it. I always just took the butt of a knife, something that was not going to mar, and whack it, and it'll pop loose on the other side. And then you can grab it with your fingers and pull it out. And then you tap it back to where it's just good and snug. But that's what I did to pop one loose quick and easy. Oh, Bang Bang Bushcraft. Hold on a minute. Did you get my comment with my email that you asked me to leave? It's regarding the Nighthawk Red Hawk combo. I'll email you any information you need to order with that. I did get something in, but if you haven't got a reply from me yet, go to that Scalp Hunter 36330 at yahoo.com. Send that to me and I will respond to you very soon. Okay. And we will make it happen. Yeah, 2020. Mother Nature is having a little bit of a problem. Anonymous. Yeah, that's the thing in video games to make it look like you walk and that's it. Yeah, it's a video game. Remember, what was the Dark Tower where the Elba is shooting the Remingtons and it shows him, putting rounds in them and everything else, super high speed in that thing. And man, if it worked that way, it'd be awesome. But life don't work that way. Yeah. You found some different straps to work on the Nighthawk. Yeah. Email me at that address that I mentioned before, the Scalp Hunter 36330 at yahoo.com. And I'll be glad to look at them. That's the reason I chose to set up the Nighthawk that way, to take Alice Pack straps, because there were so many out there over that long lifespan of that pack. There's 5 different kinds I knew of. There was a Special Forces set, there was the long set, the short set, and the square pad set. And then there was a one piece that had a simple click on it that I think the SEALs had at one time. So there was all kinds of them floating around. Miss Pam, good evening. I could take off the spring and put the L of the wedge under the screw if it had a longer screw. Yes. Yeah, it's supposed to capture that so it don't fall out of the gun whenever you hit it. Because if you're up on horseback and you went whacking, the wedge just shot out of the gun, you don't have a gun. And so it was a way of retain. They're supposed to retain, but some of the modern reproductions don't. I mean, one of my Colt reproductions of an 1861, it's captured. You whack it and it comes out. You don't get that wedge out unless you take that screw out. My 1860, I can just pull it straight out. They've got the screw too high up and it's clearing it. They need a bigger screw. Texas Joe, good evening. Butt 112, good evening to Rome, Georgia. Cool Joe, Blackie, do you have any axes that you like? I like Norland is one of my favorite all-time axes for the small light axe. Gransford's Brooks are good axes, but they're really meant for European softer woods and American woods. And so I use a lot of old antique American axes that I picked up over the years. I had a Century axe, which that Columbia, not Columbia knife rear and tool. Dadgummit. It's like Columbia knife rear and tool, but it's an axe company. And Rooster works with them. And I think that's his. And they make axes. Those are really good axes. But I'm drawing a mental blank on what the name of the company is right now. Dead Prepper, yes. The Alice Pack waistband will anchor. If you look down on the bottom of the pack, you notice that it's got a double set of D-rings. The inner set of D-rings can hook to the Alice Pack waistband, and the outer set hooks to the straps. Blackie been thinking. See, this thing is designed so it can hook onto the Alice Pack frame, or it can carry the waistband and the straps without the frame. I thought of that when I made it. Logan 55. I've been rewatching your videos on Rumble channel. Thank you very much. Just curious what your next going to be going topic with over there. I'm going to be doing a review on a Ruger Security 9mm that I picked up for an everyday carry here recently. And I'll be talking about it pretty soon. Now, as far as the black powder guns and stuff, I'm going to go back and start doing some stuff with them. I'm going to be taking the 63 Pocket Navy, and let's talk about concealed carry with a cap and ball revolver. That will be starting in January. And we're going to talk about how we can dial it in for maximum efficiency and stuff like that. If you were carrying, that was the most common type of Colt carried in the Old West, was the 49 pocket models. The Pocket Navy is just a 49 pocket model in 36 instead of 31. So it's like the big bore pocket model. And let's talk about concealment gun and what this gun would be used for in that time. So that's one of the things I'm going to be bringing up in January. Kodak, good evening. Oh, cool, Kenny. Yeah. Cinnamon and acorn. Yeah. They really do it. It's just so labor intensive. But for most of human history, we've been eating acorns. That's really our first flour, was acorn. And archaeologists and stuff, long before we were cultivating wheat and stuff like that, we had learned to make flour before we discovered you can make it out of wheat. And it was out of acorns and stuff like that. So. Well, I would probably return that instead of buying a new rifle. But if you got the funds, go for it. Sounds like a good excuse to add something else to the Remuda. Go ahead. Council Tool. Yes, thank you, Joe. Council Tool makes a good axe. I like theirs. Condor Knife and Tool. Condor also makes a decent small axe, cheaper price. But the Council is who I was thinking for. Thank you. Anonymous, yeah, seating the caps, as long as the nipple is not, if the nipple is too cone shaped like this, you set it down, it flares out the cap and wants to fall off. Too vertical like that, get up there. Too vertical like that, and it's a straight tube. And one of the things that I've had to do in the past, just depends on the nipple, is I've taken it out, wrapped the threads once or twice with masking tape, stuck it into a cordless drill and turned it, and then stuck a file up there to take away a little bit of that and do like that, turn that down so it's a little bit more vertical, so the cap would fit on it and be more of a straight on. And that seems to help a lot, because that they're too blunt. You push them all the way down and they'll slowly slide back up, because the metal tension will push out and then it'll, like a spring, want to slide up. And I had some older guns that were worn out a little bit, and that was the thing. And so I just chucked them up and turned down the shank just a little bit, kept the proper diameter, but just kind of brought down that, took that and kind of dropped the shoulder, kept this up here the same, but further down, and let it slide on. And that helped mine a lot. Okay, let's see. Okay. What are your thoughts about the Condor knives? I like Condor knives as a working knife. And what I recommend people is, if you're starting out and you're looking to get into it and you want to do stuff, but you don't have a lot of money, first knife, get a Mora. You can't beat a Mora for the money. You really can't. It's a decent blade, and it is at a really good price. And if you're learning, you're going to screw up. You're going to mess up in sharpening. You're going to do something to hurt a blade. It's just normal. And therefore, I'd rather you screwed up a $20 knife than something much more expensive. Once you are very confident with that and you want to go up one, go to one of those Condor bush lowers or Condor Kephardts or something like that. Those are good knives. And that was my carry knife before I got my WC knife, was a Condor bush lower. And it's a classic bushcraft type knife. Does a decent job, holds an edge well, easy to sharpen. And then whenever those knives you want to take a step up, go look at the Pathfinder knives because they're about $100 to $150, and they're a good design knife, well made, USA made, and they're like I said, somewhere between $100 and $150, or somewhere in that market. And then when you want to go top shelf, go get you a WC knife. But don't start out with a WC knife. That's a $300 knife. Yes, it will last you the rest of your life. But if you haven't got the skills yet, start with the stuff and do the progression. It's just the best way to do. By the time you get there, you will appreciate and know what that knife is. S-wing, it does. It makes a good axe. Yes, anonymous, they will. If you'll also dehorn, if you look inside of the hammer, you got that slot. Make sure the bottom of it does not have a sharp edge. Take a little file and round them off. Otherwise, when they hit, they want to grab the cap like a claw hammer. That way, when you cock, it's pulling it off and dropping it in the action. But if you'll dehorn those two right there and sand that down and make sure there's no sharp edge, where remember when it fires, that cap's going to push up between those two. So make sure the inside edges are smooth too. Parabellum, cool. Charles Martin, the Gray Man is doing great. It really is. I've used it extensively for day-to-day work, kitchen work, etc. And I had to go hide my other knives because once Mrs. Blackie figured out that Blackie wasn't using that real nice Blackbird, well, it can come in the kitchen then, and no, honey. Excuse me. No, honey, it don't have to go into the kitchen. It can stay right where it is. You've got 2 WC knives in the kitchen now, so you don't need that. But I'm carrying the Gray Man around and doing my due diligence with it. And it's like a blowed up Kephart. It's just a bigger Kephart. And I carried a knife like this. In fact, on social media, I showed a picture of my Rendezvous knife, which is like a butcher knife, similar in design, that is a French, what they call lollipop tang, big round end on it, tang, French butcher knife / trade knife from the mid 1700s. That was my knife of choice in living history. And when you lay the Gray Man up next to it, you can see where a lot of the cues are the same, even to the way that the damn handle is on the bottom and everything. So I knew that it felt very familiar when I picked it up. I just didn't realize where I was being familiar from. But I really enjoy that knife. Steve Durst, yes, I will be having my camp out in the spring. Now, here is the dates that we're planning on. The weekend of April the 3rd through the 6th is Georgia Bushcraft, their spring event. Me and the guys from Fuel the Fire are going to be teaching classes up there. That'll end on Sunday. When it ends on Sunday, we're going to drive all the way out to the lake. And Monday, the 7th, is whenever my event will start. So my gathering will run from the 7th of April to the 13th of April. So April 7th through the 13th will be my gathering. And so we will just all get together up there at Georgia Bushcraft, do our stuff, and then we'll just all caravan back down to the lake and set up at the lake and be at the lake from then on for the duration. So that's the dates. And I will be doing a standalone video here very shortly announcing those dates. Archer, what is your preferred blade steel and blade grind for a bushcraft knife? Most of my career, it was 01 tool steel was my preferred steel. Yes, it will rust, but it holds an edge well. It's easy to maintain in the field, and it prefers to patina and darken rather than just rust, you know. And so with just a little bit of halfway common sense usage, you could keep it excuse me, in the field and going for indefinitely. I now believe AEBL is the best steel. And so after William and Dan and I got the WCSK going, and the Seals requested a stainless version of it. And William went into the wizard shop and cast his spells and figured out that the heat treat in the book didn't work. And in talking back and forth in experimentation between me and him and Dan, we worked out what the heat treat should be for that and made a steel. And that's what I would prefer today. And that's what the Gray Man is. And that's what my Blackbird is I'm toting, is a AEBL, which is a razor blade steel. And it holds an edge phenomenal. And yet it's so easy to sharpen. I mean, that's the thing. It won't rust. Seals like it because you keep it in salt water. It's okay. But that is the steel I prefer. Now, grind somewhere around 11 or 12 degree is usually where I like. It's robust enough that it can handle the heavy load, yet it's thin enough it slices well. And so that's somewhere about where I'm looking at. Shane Lawson, good evening. PC Allen, I talked about that a minute ago. I'm on the fence about going to Hang Con, you know, honestly. Every year I forget about it. Every year I miss it. And, but it's less than an hour from where I just went with the Rewild guys. So it's about a 6-hour drive for me, tops. And I've got several friends coming down there to it and asked me, did I want to come down and be with them? So more than likely I will, but I've just not got my brain wrapped around it yet, you know. But if I do decide to drive down there and go spend the weekend down there, I will do a video to let everybody know I'm coming. Have you used the bow drill? Dip in it yet? I have not, but I have seen, you know, JJ and Mike and them use it, and it holds up a lot better than I thought it would. You know, I really expected it to be a problem. It glazes over. That G10 scale just glazes over. And so it does not burn a hole in it. You can go ahead and use it. And the steel is right there on the other side of it. If it ever did wear through, you're against that steel. You ain't going to hurt that steel. So it works just fine. Robin Sanders, they actually do make a little round tube, for lack of a term, that slides over the cap in wet conditions for hunting. And you can do the same thing if you just go look for take one of the caps and go look in the pet department and look for that aquarium tubing. There's 2 or 3 different sizes of aquarium tubing. But it's one of those sizes of aquarium tubing, you can just thumb press the cap into it. That's what you want to get, and then take a razor blade and cut little slices out of it, and it does the same thing. For hunting, you'll put the cap onto the nipple and then slide that little piece of tubing around it, and it make sure you go below it. Don't have the cap here and that tube sticking up. It's got to be down here below it so that the hammer hits the cap, and that tube doesn't act like a shock absorber, see? And of course, it busts it whenever it goes off. So you're only going to get one run out of that thing. But for rainy conditions and stuff with the muzzleloader, it will work to help seal it up better. Blackie, other than the weight, is there a downside to carrying a Grail and a canteen set together? I don't think so. Because the canteen works as versus a set for cooking, etc. Plus, it's your quick grab. Okay, I feel it's your reserve, I should say. I get to the water source and I take my grail and I fill it up, and then I fill up the canteen to the canteen's full. Then I seal that up and it goes back in the carrier. Then I fill up the grail and I drink until I drink all I want. Then I fill up the grail and fill it up a second time and I carry it. The grab bottle is always the grail. So when the grail is empty, that's when I fall back on that canteen and I start looking for a water source. You know, so it doubles my distance I can go without having water, because I rehydrated me at the water source, not just fill it up and keep walking. You're going to drink that in the next quarter mile because you're thirsty. You should sit there and drink at the water source and then refill and then go. And so carrying the that's what I'm doing, is carrying a canteen and the grail is two separate units and using them in that way, because I can filter water right now. And then for short hikes where I know there's going to be water sources close, I'll just tote the grail. If I'm not planning on eating, it's just a light scout. I don't need my cook set and everything else. I'll just carry the grail, because when I come up to the water source, I can refill it right then immediately, have cold water coming right out of the ground, right out of the stream, know it's safe to drink, rehydrate. And then once I'm fully full that I don't need any more to drink, that's when I fill it up for that battery, so to speak, to carry with me on my trail. And when I do, half hour from now, whatever, an hour, depending on the conditions, when I start getting thirsty again, I'll go to that grail. So it works together as a system. I used to run 2 canteens back in the days of the summertime. Whenever I was having to boil water, I ran 2 canteens, and it sucked. It really did, because it took so long for the water to cool off, because it's 100 degrees out here and 80% humidity. And so you would boil the water to purify it, then you'd put it in the canteen, and even if you went and sat the canteen in the dang stream, it'd take a half hour for it to cool down to where you wanted to drink it. And so I'd have to run 2 canteens to always have cool water with me, giving that one time, that hot water bottle I just filled up with hot water, an hour, 45 minutes to cool down, but so I'd want to drink it. But with the grail, that eliminates that. I can keep the water cool without having to heat it up. Dave, hello to New Zealand. Thank you for watching. Okay, Hector, hold on a second. My niece Heather and her hat pins. I have right here, somewhere close by. There it is. I keep them right here for just such things. Okay. And I will freeze. Tinkering Crafts Kentucky -Etsy and at Tinkering Around Crafts Instagram. That's her. As well as at Tinkering Around Crafts at gmail.com. That's her. And if you didn't get it right there, when the video's over, you can just pause it and get a good look at it. Okay, Ron, how come these bad boys are $100 cheaper online than in store? On what store? What bad boys are you talking about? Rod Legovich? Benjamin Scout, good evening. Oh, Captain Ball, got you. Hector, thank you very much. Captain Ball, how come these things are $100? Yeah. Quite often times it's the write-up, the markup. These gun shops and stuff that buy the Captain Ball, they'll get with an importer and they'll agree to buy 10. They get a discount if they'll buy 10, and a lot of times they'll let them mix and match. And a lot of times places will only carry them during Christmas, because that's when people buy them as gifts. So the rest of the year they can care less, but during those times they'll buy them. And so they get them at a discount, and they're able to turn around and sell it. But sometimes they jack that price up too. So let's say, for example, an 1860 Army, a Uberti is somewhere around $350. Steel frame, everything normal on it. I will also expect to see that gun in a brass frame for around $250. And then you go to a Paeta will be somewhere around 275, 280 in a steel frame. And sometimes you'll find them like 240, 230, 240 in a brass. See? And so it's just time, year, what run they're doing, etc. And so you can really save some money if you scout around. Christmas is not the time to be looking for a cap and ball. Somewhere around the beginning of March, because any leftover from Christmas and stuff like that, they're wanting to get them off the shelves, and you'll see them pop up. And also get onto the scratch and dent list. Go to like Sportsman's Guide, Cimarron, and a couple of the others. EMF used to be that way. And you can email them and say, look, I'm interested in one. I don't care if it's scratched or dented. If you got a damaged one you want to sell for cheap. And a lot of times it's one that gets dropped, that it ain't hurt, but it's got a ding in the stock, or, you know, somebody scratched it, taking it out of the box. A staple or something's in the box, and they pulled it out and it scratched. And I've known guys to get them at half price before because of that. So just keep an eye out. A lot of times you can score that way. Jimmy Dunlap, glad you did. Kodak, any experience with round ball and 45 Colt case, Blackie? Yes, I have done that before. But I tell you, if you're looking for something lighter, so to speak, than a 45 Colt, a 45 ACP lead will fit in and fire. And it's a lighter load. It's only a 230. See, instead of the 250, etc., you get with the bigger ones. And you can do 180, 185 grain round ball will fit in there. But the thing is, you need full, if you're going to shoot black powder in it, no problem. Because the ball gets in there and you've got the magic center line where, you know, the curve is, it's curved this way. This is the biggest diameter right here. That's where you got to clamp. You got to run it up and let it taper the brass in right above that. Otherwise, the ball just comes out under recoil. Trust me, it can be very impressive. That's somebody that I was friends with years ago, and he loaded up round ball and black powder, and he loaded up all 6 chambers, and they were not in there well. They were just basically sitting in there. And he pulled the trigger on the first round. Bang! Well, the round went down, but the recoil caused all the ball in the other ones to come loose. And 2 or 3 fell out, but he didn't realize it. He cocked, when he fired the second one, it ignited all that powder all the way around. So he had this fireball like that around the gun. It was pretty impressive. Didn't hurt the gun, but it scared the snot out of everybody on the range. So you have to make sure it's well secured. And if the case is full of black powder, that keeps it from going down in. If you want to use smokeless powder, you got to turn around and add a filler like cream of wheat or grits or something to act as the filler for where the ball won't push down in the case. Benjamin Scott, we're still on track. The plan is that they're supposed to be to me about the middle of January, and I will be shipping them out just as soon as they show up to me. Andrew Kelso, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, brother. Tony York, yeah, exactly. 75 outlaws and one had a ding. That's a good deal. Tim Pierce, have you used a Mr. Heater propane type heater? Yes, I have. Pros and cons. Quick and easy to ignite. Does a good amount of heat. Gives a good service. Con, long-term use, it will wear out in a season. Okay. The seals and etc. internal, it's designed to work, but it's not designed to work forever. That's the thing. So you normally get 1 year, 2 at the max of using it in a hunting camp, using it in a deer blind or something like that before the seals give out on you. And just know that the longevity of it. Inside of an enclosed space, it will give you a headache. It is using propane. It is carbon monoxide. So you have to make sure you got good ventilation. Now, inside of a hot tent where you've got an air flow in there, you leave it cracked at the top or whatever, yes, it can work that way. Especially when you're going to be sleeping in there and you got plenty of cover for that, but you just don't want to get up to a cold tent. You want to reach out and hit the button and let it fire up and then lay there 30 minutes while it heats up the tent. Yeah, that'll work. Again, make sure you got proper ventilation in there. But other than that, they work very, very well for that. What's the maximum powder charge for a Powered XP in a Remington conversion cylinder for the Birdie 58 5-inch barrel? Probably, I would say about 35 grains. Yes, you can pack more in there, but after that, you get diminishing returns. So about 35 grains is about all you're going to get in there. And you're going to be pushing, if not exceeding, 1,000 feet per second when you do that. Wab 1954, thank you very much and Merry Christmas. Ron, is the guy's hand okay? It was. Luckily, it didn't burn him. It just because the flash went forward and away from him, but it just scared the snot out of him. And it was because all them came loose and released that powder. And it basically, if it'd been a cap and ball revolver, it chain fired. I have had a cap and ball revolver chain fire. 2 most common reasons that happened. 1, poorly seated nipples on the back of it and the flash goes through. That's where you get 1. All 6 goes. That's undersized bullets or something that's got the chambers are out of round. So that whenever you ram the ball in, it's not sufficiently tight. It isn't truly sealing and there's enough gap. And when it goes bang, it'll chain fire. I've had a couple of those. I had a Italian-made replica back in the 70s that I couldn't figure out why this thing kept chain firing. And I finally got to the point that I took the nipples out. I then put it in the gun and I just put the round ball in and seated the round ball just like I would be loading it. And then I took it out and looked in the hole where the nipple went into the chamber and put a strong flashlight. And I saw a little crescent of light where the chambers were not truly round. And even though the ball had it orbitated, it wasn't fully sealing it. And there was a fine little bitty gap around all of them. So that's where the flash was coming in and igniting it. I had to go to a much larger projectile. I went from a 4.51 to a 4.57 to seal it up. And that cured the problem. But it was poor quality, cheap gun back in the 70s. Yeah, John Loudermilk. We had that happen at not one of ours, but at a rendezvous I was at. And what had happened was he had brought in a charcoal hibachi into the wedge tent, A-frame tent, excuse me. And him and his grandson was in there, and he didn't want his grandson to get cold. And the kid sleeping on the ground, that's what saved him. It used up the oxygen up there, and the granddaddy up on the cot suffocated, and the boy didn't. But he was severely sick. He had carbon monoxide poisoning. And because of that, you don't use them in an enclosed space. I'm sorry. It really, to heat something, you've got to either have something burning or something electrically or some way heating it, or radiating heat some other way. And like I talked about in my class video I did Sunday or so ago, you're looking for something to heat up a tent and you don't want to put a lot of money in it, go get a U.S. Army ammo can, like a 50 cal can, take the lid off because the seal's in the lid, fill the box full of sand, sit that in the fire, get that good and hot, take a pair of vice grips and clamp onto it, pick it up, tote it in the tent, sit it on a couple of rocks. Do not do this inside of a tent with a floor. You got to be on the ground. Seal the doors up. it'll radiate heat for hours. And it isn't burning and it's not using up oxygen. It's just radiating heat. Like I said, if you then take one of them little sternos, one of them 6-hour sternos, and slide underneath it so it's replenishing that heat, it might go all night then. I don't know. In January, I plan on doing a test of this. I'm going to set up my hot tent, and we're going to try the hot ammo can and see how it works. Right. I don't know what the chain fire would do to the finish of the frame. It doesn't really hurt the gun, except where the rammer is. That round goes straight forward and smacks into the rammer. And it may arbitrate the rammer a little bit. But the rest of them just go down the side of the gun. The one down the barrel and the other two go down the sides of the barrel on either side. The one in the very bottom hits the rammer. But usually it comes straight out, and just as soon as it hits that rammer and stop, the gas blows out the side of it. So it doesn't normally destroy the gun or damage the gun. It is very memorable. I've had in my life a handful of all 6 going, and it was always something like that that caused it. But yeah, it can be very impressive when it goes bang. Charles Martin, yes, I have used a buddy heater. Oh, yeah. One of the old Colt 380 Mustangs. It had that little flip. You had to put it together at a certain part and then flip it backwards like that to get that piece to stand up and slide, and then you had to finish the slide on it. Otherwise, it didn't want to work. It jammed up. Satchmo, good evening. Yep, time for winter camping. Lost Ways, good evening, brother. Lost Ways is in the house. Lost Ways is where I got my little draw knife from, guys. Lost Ways and Survival and Homestead. And that little draw knife is right here. That's that little draw knife that we talked about. I'm going to be using this in some upcoming videos. Showing about the use of that thing. But that's a perfect little tool. Slide in the pack for a job, a specific job. That's a perfect little tool for it. Lost Ways, John Loudermilk's asking if you make larger draw knives too. Well, you know, if you went up to about something about that big with like a 4-inch blade, that's a real nice size. I like that. But just a little bit bigger with a 4-inch blade, I think would be a real great for doing bows and stuff. Yeah, Mora makes a bigger one as well. And even, Opinel at one time made a little bitty draw knife. But, God, that's probably 30 years ago. Blackie, is there a reason the 51s seem to be so much cheaper than the 1860s? The caliber, the 36 caliber. And the fact that the 51s early on were the super cheap ones. You know, they were the ones that were the $49 ones, etc. And 1860 was a higher dollar, and that's just kind of carried on to the modern time. And so it's especially in the brass frames, people consider the 51 kind of like a starting gun, which is a shame because the 51 is a very well balanced, very good shooting gun. Wild Bill preferred his 51s because the balance of them, they were very good. Accurate. When you have a good gun, it's a very good accurate gun, and you're not getting the recoil of the amount of powder, the amount of lead. The 51 is a cheaper, easier to shoot gun for that reason. and will handle anything that a 22 Magnum or a 38 would do out to like 20 yards. So it's a good gun. It's why they want to be cheaper. I think it's just strictly because of marketing, you know. Rip McCory, good evening. Dennis Fields, yeah, a buck 110 with a 90-degree angle would be nice. Oh, cool. John Loudermilk, you caught a couple of crappie. Good. Gordon, yeah, a squirrel gun and 36 caliber flintlock. Yeah. Now, you can't find them anymore, but let me tell you, when Dixie first brought out their copy of Boone's rifle, which became the Dixie Mountain rifle when they went to 50 cal, but it was in 40 cal. Now, the advantage of the 40 cal is you use the same round ball 380 that you put into a cap and ball revolver. You just put a thick patch on it. And so ammo was plentiful, you know. And I had back in the 80s, I had a 40 caliber. It was one of the early Dixie barrels, and I bought a stock and I built the gun from scratch and played around with it for a while, making a small game gun for squirrel hunting and stuff like that. And so if you're getting a 36, you got to use a 350 round ball. But if you would get a 40 cal, you can use the same ball that go into a cap and ball 51 Navy or 1861 Navy. So just, you know, if you already had one, you had the mold for it, hey, they work together. You know what I mean? Lost ways, yes. I was just telling him a minute ago, I'm going to have to do a winter thing this coming month. I'm going to do an overnighter and do a hot tent. And let's talk about setting up hot tent. Let's talk about doing that hot box full of sand and fire, and let's see how it works and etc. Christmas money is burning a hole in my pocket. Eyeballing a 51 Navy and 44. Yeah, that's a gun that never existed, but they sure do shoot well. And they never made it. They only made one 51 Navy and 44, and it was the prototype that led to the 1860 Army. And it's actually sitting in the Colt Museum. But yeah, they shoot very well. And if you just like the look of it, man, the 51's a sexy gun. I love the octagonal barrel and everything. It just looks good. So yeah. Tim McCarver, good to see you. Lost Ways, want to do a squirrel hunt in it. Yeah, that would be cool. And that's the real advantage of a hot tent. I mean, you set it up, get comfortable. You can sit in it, you know, with the wood stove going or whatever. It's so nice to be able to, you know, change clothes, to take off what you wore during the day and put on what you're going to sleep in that night. About an hour or so before you're going to go to bed, and give that time to warm up. You know, even if you're going out and sitting by the fire, but able to have a warm tent to go in there and change, and then put your sleeping bag up over. I used a hammock. I draped my sleeping bag over the ridgeline in the very top, so that's where all the heat's rising up here. So that means my sleeping bag is warm before I even come in and get into it. And so it makes a difference. I've only got to use my hot tent in the winter like 5 times now, and so as a hot tent. But I will be setting it up. I'll probably be setting it up in the backyard and setting it up, and us doing an overnight type cold weather experimentation. I'll put a thermometer in there, and we'll try using the hot can of sand and see how that works with a sterno underneath it to keep adding heat. So as it's losing heat, it's adding a little heat, and see if that'll extend the life of that. And let's see if we can get the temperature in that tent up too. Blakey, do you prefer the style you showed, draw knife over a straight one? Many ways, yeah. Now, a hook knife can be straight. I know what you're talking about. A hoof knife is a straight pull knife, and that can be very useful. But this type of two-hand, because what am I going to be doing with that? It's probably going to be doing like bow work or something like that, and I'm wanting to plane down a piece of wood to be a nice, smooth, even finisher, etc., or I'm trying to process stuff. That's where that works, and I'll rig up two handles on it right quick, something I can hook. Like take the fork of a branch and hook that on the top, and then take the handles on, so I got something good I can get a hold of and pull, and use that little draw knife. You can strip a lot of bark in a hurry with that. You know, lots of stuff to protect the knife with. Christopher Evans, what hot tent do you use? I've got a one wind Penumbra. They run for about $160, $170. And it's got a hole for a smokestack for a wood stove in it. Now, were I going to buy it again, I would not do that. I would simply use either a propane Mr. Buddy heater in there, or I would use a hot sand trick, because I've got a little wood stove, but the little wood stove is only about yay big, and it doesn't have a long burn time because it's so small. So even though I packed that thing solid full, and I figured out real quick, don't use firewood, use lump, L-U-M-P, charcoal, which is not petroleum based. It's just charred wood, like we make char cloth. It's charred wood. And I'd get the fire going, and I would just pack that stuff in and close the door, and you'd see this hot band working from the back to the front. And you only get 30 to 45 minutes burn time, then you're out of fuel, and you got to open the door and stock it up again. So I went through like a 5-gallon bucket of lump charcoal in about, say, 4 hours. So it kept me warm in ridiculously cold conditions, but you know, I really think it works better. There's another way we can do it to keep the heat going in there, keep it warm in there. Yeah, Lost Ways. You and Sassy ought to do that. That'd be a good way to do it. Andrew, can you hunt small game with a 45 Hawken? What do you think about powder charge? Usually around the 30 to 35 grains. And yes, you can hunt small game with it, but realize that headshots are your friend. And so rabbits and squirrels, rabbit body shot, hit them through the lungs, it's over. It's about like a 410 shotgun slug then. But squirrels, you have to do headshots. If you hit the body, there ain't no meat left on him. You can bloat all the meat off of it. Ears and tails don't make much of a meal. But I have hunted squirrel with a 50 cal before, and it can be done. You just got to call your shots. Oh, yeah, Timothy. There were Cabela's for many years sold a 32 caliber flintlock that was made by Pertasoli. Those were really good squirrel guns. I had one back in the day. They were really good. Bob Simmons, glad to be of help, sir. Okay. The Penumbra, when it's set up, is 14 feet from one peak to the other peak, 8 foot wide, about 6.5 foot tall. And you set it up like a little wall tent. You run a ridge line either between two poles or between two trees, and it just zips up on the end. You can put 4 people in there easily around the walls, 1 hanging in a hammock and 3 on the ground. You could easily do it. Or you could put 4 cots spaced out. You just got to step over each other in there. And so it can be done. It's wide enough to put a cot sideways in it. And it's small, compact, easy to carry. And but the heat source, you got to figure out what you're going to use for a heat source. Anonymous, can you put an Army barrel on that Navy that's 44 caliber, and would it count as a 61 Navy? No, if you cannot put the 44 caliber Army barrel and the 44 caliber cylinder onto a 51, you can put a 51 barrel and cylinder onto an 1860. The 1860 has a rebated, and all the 44s are rebated. The cylinder's too big and will not fit onto the 41 or the 61. But you can put the 61 barrel and the 41 barrel and their cylinders onto the 1860. So you can go put the smaller up onto the 44, but you can't go the other way. You know, it's a uniformity of parts is what they're doing. Count the days. Yeah, those diesel, $100 diesel heaters, you know, those are a dead ringer for the old Volkswagen heater that used to come with the vans for people way up north. They look just like the old German-made diesel heaters that were for the Volkswagen buses back in the 70s, 60s, and 70s. And I've seen them, and a lot of guys are using them, but like you see the guys in it, take it apart slowly, take pictures so you know where everything goes, and check all the nuts and bolts all the way when you put it back together, because they are known for coming from the factory with things not fully tightened down. They put it together so quick. And so make sure everything is put together good. And then you've got an exhaust hose and an air intake hose. You got your fuel tank. Make sure those are not touching. Don't have the hoses the same length where it sucks from one end to the other. You want that air hose, that exhaust hose, much longer than that air hose, and let it suck air in there and to blow exhaust out. And yeah, it'd probably put it on the outside of the tent, running under the side of the tent. The exhaust, the exhaust and the air come from the outside in, and put that out there, and you'll probably be fine. Virginia Bushcrafter, good evening, sir. Yeah, Blue Bandit, as long as you're aware of it and you maintain a little bit of airflow in there, you're okay. It's just don't truly seal up. You know, that's the problem. Nothing combustible. They are by definition using up oxygen and producing carbon dioxide. So as long as you have a fresh air supply coming in and a little bit of air flowing out at the top, where you got, it doesn't have to be big and major, but a little bit on that penumbra. The zippers, it's three-way zippers. You can unzip it in all kinds of ways. But at the very top, it doesn't zip tight to the top. It leaves where it comes up. The zipper actually sticks out, because the penumbra you can open up flat and just make a giant tarp. For you go, it's meant to go over a hammock, and so man, it's like a 14-foot across tarp. It's huge. But where the zips up, it doesn't truly zip close. It leaves like a half-inch to an inch gap at the very top, and that lets a little bit of heat and air out. So I made sure at the ground there at the stove, I left the side up just about a half-inch so air would come under and go right to that stove to make sure I had fresh air coming in. And then on the far end, I made sure that I had that open just so a little bit of heat would go out. So the heat would be generated and would slowly flow out, and I kept a constant airflow. And I never had a headache or nothing in there, and I was warm and comfortable in that little bitty thing. When I do the hot tent, I will bring out the wood stove, and we will start with the wood stove, and then we'll shift over to other alternatives to see what we can do. Anonymous, I'm sorry. What was it you wanted me to say again? And sorry for the commercials. Like I said, I apologize, guys. They've changed the way it is on my side. And so I'm going to have to figure out how to stop it. Usually I could just say, no, don't monetize it. They're not giving me that option now. It's there, but you can't click it off. It just stays on. So I'm going to find out what I got to do to get that off there. DE, can you use a hot tent stove to heat up a tarp and a plow point? Not really that well. Honestly, a open fire is better. Making a long fire that reflects heat into the tent and a plow point works much better than the stove. Stoves radiate heat outward, but they don't have, flame radiates a long wavelength, kind of like for lack of a better term, we'll say infrared. Okay. That's how you feel the heat farther away. You can have the same amount of heat coming out of a hot, molten ingot sitting there, and you can be 10 feet away and not feel any heat from it because it's not creating that long wave. Open fire generates that long wave heat. So it will warm up a tent much better, an open-faced diamond or wedge tent, much better than a stove would, because unless it's enclosed. Now, if you put it in there and put a tarp to the front, something, you got a place where that stovepipe ain't gonna get too hot. Could you do that? Yes, because you're causing a microclimate then, and you can heat it up a little bit. But that is the weakness of the design and the system, etc. I tried that, me and my wife. I had a Yukon stove and put it in. I put 2 diamonds, basically touching with a slit to get in and out. And we went through a very, very, very cold night on a mountain in North Alabama back about 1991 or 2. And that was a frozen foot thing on a mountain in North Alabama. And bless her little heart, it got down to like 12 degrees that night. And Blackie was up stoking that fire about every 30 minutes with wood and pine cones and whatever. And you'd see this red hot band going from one end of the stove. And he'd get just about the door, and I'd tell about that 70, and I'd have to open the door and shove all the firewood in. And I'd shut the door, and the band would start at the back and come to the front again. And you had about 30, 45 minutes of run time before it would run out of fuel. And if you didn't restock it up, you had to start over, which is the weakness of all those stoves. Okay, Sanford Brown, if you look in the description box of this video, I put down Surplus Place phone number just for that. It's 334-898-1770. They are open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. Central Time. And then on Saturday, they're open from 10 to 3 Central Time. But call up the ladies and they'll help you out. They're good people. DE, glad to do it. Oh, 60 barrel on a 51 Navy. Yes, Anonymous. Okay, the 1860 frame and the 1851 frame are basically the same frame. The difference is the 1860 has a relief cut on what they call the water table to allow the bigger cylinder, because the cylinder is 2-step, big end, a little bit smaller for the 1860. If you took an 1860 frame, a Pieta to a Pieta, a Uberti to a Uberti, there's slight differences in the size of the base pins. So if I was going to attempt this for making some sort of kit, I would start with an 1860 Uberti, let's say. I would take the barrel off and the cylinder off, and I would get a Uberti 51 Navy cylinder that would slide on, and a 1861 or 1851 Uberti barrel would slide on. And that should fit. I did a demo of that in one of my early Captain Ball videos a couple of years ago now, where I talked about the magic gun, and I showed interchanging parts that they would, to a point, interchange. You know, it may not be 100% perfect, but it could be done and make up a kit that you can do that. You cannot take the 1860 barrel. You could, but you can't take the 1860 cylinder and put it onto the 51 or 61 because it doesn't have that relief cut in the frame for that big cylinder. That's what I was trying to say. Right. I haven't forgot that. If it's a 51 Navy and it's in 44, then it's just an 1860 with a square 44 caliber 51 Navy barrel on it. You could get an 1860 barrel and put on it, and it'd be an 1860. That's what kind of sets it apart, is that big cylinder and the clearance in the frame. So you could get a 44 caliber, 51 Navy, and all it is an 1860 with a square barrel on it. They just chambered it bigger. And I have said that I would love to get one and modify it, because what they did with the original gun was they took a 1851 Navy and they rechambered it in 44. They made that cylinder. And if you look at the quote, quote, prototype, the difference is the fact what they did to the barrel. And they rounded part of the barrel because they knew the next thing coming was that streamlined round barrel. See? And so they took that 51 and they kind of streamlined it a little bit. I think they made the bottom of the barrel round. And instead, I think the top flat's still flat, but like they rounded it, trying to get the same symmetry. And they changed the ratcheting on it. But beyond that, take one and make up a prototype, make it look like the Colt prototype. I thought that'd be a cool project to do sometime. Does John Wick know this? Well, the producers do. But that was actually, Keanu Reeves did it because of The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, where you see Tuco go in there and start mixing and matching gun parts on it, which he knew which guns to put. He's not a gunsmith. The guy, little guy from the Bronx, did not know that, and they had to lay the guns out in an order for him to pick up the pieces and try to fit them together. And that's the reason the shot is done the way it is, so that he could figure out what parts to put on. But John Wick did that in the movie as a kind of an homage back to The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, because it's such a standout in that movie. Yep, correct. You built you a 61 on a 44 frame. It'll work, because that's the change, the 44 frame. Once you've got it, you can mix and match a lot of parts. And there was a time I thought about it. Colt, and part of their commemoratives that they were making of the reissued, and I think it was in 82, 83, somewhere in there. They did this case set that had a shoulder stock, an 18-inch barrel for an 18-inch barrel for a third model Dragoon, a short normal length barrel, a shoulder stock, and a third model Dragoon in it. And then they did one for the 1860 that was a pair of 1860s with a shoulder stock and an extra long 12-inch barrel that you could mix and match the parts. So you could make a revolving carbine and have a sidearm. And Colt brought those out. And as I understand, they didn't sell real well because they were like $750 way back then. That'd be about like $2,500 or $3,000 in today's money. And so I always wanted to make up a kit where I could open it up and mix and match parts and make 4 or 5 different guns, whichever way I wanted to go, and have a long barrel Colt. And I got to go to Dixie Gun Works and got to meet Mr. Turner Kirkland, who had started. And when you ever get a chance to go there, and anybody that's in the cabin ball, if you ever get a chance to go anywhere near Union City, Tennessee, it's in the top left corner, almost to Memphis, go there and go see it. But he had his cases out there that were fakes that he had bought over the years and didn't realize it was a fake. And one was an 1860 Army revolving carbine. Colt never made such a thing. But what it was is they had put like a 18-inch barrel with adjustable sights, and they had taken an 1860 Army and made a grip frame so it was a straight stock. Had like a pistol grip on it, like a 73 Winchester. It dropped down, and they'd made a trigger guard that went in there, so it was, an actual nice looking stock. And the whole gun was like 31, 32 inches long. And in fact, I believe it had a fold up rear sight on it, that you had a sight up on the barrel, and it had a tang sight stood up, and which he figured out that rear sight was made for a Remington number 2 rolling block. They had put it on that stock, but it looked really good. But he'd got it in the 40s or 50s, And some gunsmith had made him a revolving carbine, but made it out of a Colt, you know. So, and then there was the single action Army pump gun. You know, on a single action Army, you got the base pin you pull out to take the cylinder out, right? Well, it goes all the way through, all the way back to the hammer. Well, some enterprising gunsmith figured out that if you made that long and you put a hand grip up here on it and put it on a slide, you could fire the gun and then go chunk, chunk, and it would push the hammer back to full cock because it'd be pushing through the middle. So it'd be like you took your thumb and cocked it, right? But it would push through the middle and push the hammer back. So it'd be chunk, chunk. And so you could make a pump action, single action Army. And so they took a bunt line with like a 13 or 14 inch barrel, put a little pump like a pump shotgun onto it, and rigged it up and had a single action Army with the shoulder stock, chunk, chunk, pump carbine. That looked pretty cool, you know. Okay, let's see. Are conversion cylinders really worth the price? Yes, they almost cost as much as the gun. Correct. Okay. The problem with the 36 caliber is there is no 38 caliber ammunition. Those are 357. The bore diameter on that gun is a 37, 36. So it's undersized. And so if you get a conversion cylinder for any of the 36 and you're going to shoot 38 in them, the bullets are just waddling down the barrel. Unless you get hollow base bullets so they'll flare up and engage the rifling. Not a great solution. The 45 Colt conversions in the 44 are a decent idea because you can take factory off the shelf 45 Colt ammunition and it'll shoot. And since the popularity of the drop-in cylinders have come around in the last 20 years, the Uberti and the Pieta 45 caliber guns, 44s, but they're really 45s, has come up, and the rifling will stabilize and handle the cartridge conversions. So if you're going to do one, I recommend the Remington because it's solid top strap, etc. All the advantages. And you can just drop it in and you shoot 45 Colt out of it. You need to use factory ammo, not super hot, no plus Ps, middle of the road, standard loads, and then reload your own. And they make a very viable 45 Colt. You know, it does exactly what it's advertised to do. But if I'm going to get a conversion cylinder, it'll be in 44. It will not be in 36 for that reason, because that just adds 2 more layers. Now I've got to get a different mold. I've got to mold special bullets. I've got to load a special way, and I've got to be able to remember that ammo is loaded with black powder because I got a 38 and 357. And I don't want to drop one of them into my 357. Won't hurt it, but it'll dirty it up in a hurry. Now, won't it? And so I need to get nickel brass or something so I can at a glance go, that is black powder loads. And so really the 44 is the way to go with it, is my 2 cents worth in it. Yeah, I hear you, Gray Wolf. Well, Bill, now you're talking about the cartridge cylinders. You can see the brass around there. The pressure is so low, you don't have to worry about it with that. And it does allow you to see if it's loaded. And you got to remember, you know, you're wanting to put it down on the empty. And some of the early conversion cylinders actually had a dead pin. That was your alignment pin. Was where one of the, where would have been a nipple was at. And that's what you're supposed to put your hammer down on. And so it didn't matter. You know, you put it in there that way. But with leaving that little gap where I can see the brass, I can see where the empty is. So if I reload one, I can index around visually and see which one's empty to put the hammer down on. That's the reason they did that. And you don't have to worry about it. You know, it's not high pressure like shooting 4.54 Casull or anything like that. It's going to handle it. It's going to be fine as long as you're using the lower pressure, you know, rounds for the cartridge conversions. Have I ever tried a rocket stove? Yes, I have. And they actually work very well. Yeah, it doesn't lose any more pressure than the regulars. It really doesn't. You lose far more pressure coming around the forcing cone, the flash at the cylinder gap, than you do out the back. And it doesn't really affect it that much. Again, we're using an antique design, not high pressure. And if you're wanting to get that kind of power and pressure, it's just best to not even go with that and just go with the modern, fully encased, etc. to utilize them for it. When I shot my, it's not a cartridge conversion. The gun was made that way, but it's a Uberti 1872 open top with a full length. It's a Richards conversion in 45 Colt. And I believe I've done a video somewhere back in there, probably in the Cap and Ball or something, talking about it. And it's in 45 Colt. And I have found my load and etc. And I had taken it up to show to Dan Lutz. And we put up a target out there pretty long ways out, and I was very lucky to hit it with iron sights, and I hit it. Well, Dan was just hooting and hollering, having a great time. We used up what little ammunition I'd brought with me really quick. Well, he had 45 Colt, he says. So he goes in there and comes out with a Ziploc bag of 45 Colt. And I was knowing his penchant for, like 480s and 454 Casull and everything else. I went, dude, this is an antique design. It isn't. Oh, these are mild target loads. It's okay. It's just a mild target load. Okay. I loaded it in. I had fired before and been bang, and it did that. I loaded up here, and when I went bang, it felt like a 44 Magnum. That sucker bucked like that. That barrel went straight up. I looked and said, they're mild loads. Yeah, for a 454 Casull, this is not a 454 Casull. So, you got to be careful with the hand loads. You got to be careful where you get your ammo when you're using these antique designs, these cartridge conversions. They are not modern magnums. Don't make them into one. Dave, New Zealand, good. Yeah, I'm going to be doing the biscuit video here pretty soon, where we're going to make mayonnaise biscuit in a canteen cup and show some tricks I've learned over the years to get to how to concentrate the heat from a small heat source and stuff like that. That'll be coming fairly soon. No, it will not, Bill Nye. The brass will not blow out the gap at you. It's just too low a pressure to do it. The only thing that's going to do that is if a head separates, and the head is only going to separate in the 45 Colt or the 40, and those after a lot of shooting. And you're out here. You're not here. You're out here. And so if it did go, it's just going to vent straight up or out the side or something. But the 45 Colt brass is fairly robust. It and the 44 Magnum start out as the same basic brass. So, and you can make 45 Colt out of 44 Magnum brass. And I've done it. So it should be absolutely fine. You don't have to worry about it coming out at you. Satchmo, any update on the Silver Wolves? We will be holding a class, and I've got a date, and I will be doing a video shortly on it, but we will be doing it in May. We'll be putting it on. It will either be at our new location, which is going to be the new training facility we got near Gadsden, Alabama, that we're trying to outfit right now rapidly. That will either be there or it'll be at the lake where I hold my gathering, one of the two. But once we nail that down about the new location and we get a road into it in the camping area, I will be giving you updates and what's going to be going on with it. Yeah, Bill Nye, yeah, it'll buck. And that's the thing. At point X, you can pack it in there tighter and tighter, go to 4th pattern, etc. At point X, you get diminishing returns because there ain't enough oxygen in the case for the amount of powder to burn. Bottom line. So you get this peak, and then you keep adding powder, and it just don't go anymore. In fact, it starts dropping down. And I've done that on chronographs before and showed it where velocity did not go up. That I would go like, just using a number here, like 30 grains, and I would get 980 feet per second. I'd go to 35 grains, and I'd get 910. That's it. It's run out of air. You could pack in 4 more grains, it won't climb another bit. You've reached that point where there ain't enough oxygen for the combustion, for the everything else. It's now forcing it to burn in the barrel, but it just makes a bigger flash, but it doesn't make more velocity. And so there is a break point there. And but you get that when you start every charge you measure, and you know exactly when you shoot across the chronograph, you'll see. And some guns produce more power and velocity than others. My 1860 does not produce high pressure. And I guess the cylinder gap is open enough that it just doesn't get the high velocity. My Remington Sheriff's model, I'm on camera in one of mine shooting a Johnson & Dow bullet at 900 and I think 50 or 970 feet per second out of that 5-inch barrel. That's impressive for a 240 or 250 grain projectile. That's nothing to sneeze at. That little bit of short gun. And yet the 1860 was a longer barrel and good full loads and everything. It's not breaking 850 or 9. It just, each gun is a little different. Who is most likely to have a weird old caliber set of dies in 7.62? Oh, 6.5 by 5.4. Okay, is that 6.5 by 5.4 MS? I don't know off the top of my head. I would always start with something like leeprecision.com. Ask them. Don't look what's on the thing. Call them. Because a lot of times they got stuff sitting back there in the room where they did runs in the past and they still got it, but they don't produce it anymore. I've had people find some oddball calibers from years ago. I remember when 357 Maximum had disappeared. Nobody knew nothing about it. It had become mythos. And a friend of mine had a 357 Maximum. And he called them up wanting to ask about making a set of dies for it. And they said, oh, we still got dies for it from we made it from back in the day. You know, we'll sell you a set of those dies. So you just got to ask. Tim Harper, any word on when the next run of Nighthawk rucksacks will be available? We will be, the ones that are on order right now will be coming in end of January. In January, I will start a new run. And so I will announce on one of my videos, it starts now, boom, and we can do it. It's just the world got convoluted on us. When we introduced the Red Hawk, that kind of interrupted my mojo of how I was doing my runs because they sold so fast and so well, but that caused Jay, who's making my stuff, to be bottled down with doing that, and that pushed my October order back a little bit, and then the hurricane hit, and that completely screwed up all supply chain and everything else for him to get stuff. He needed some more material in to finish up the run, and he couldn't get the stuff delivered because everything in that whole part of the country was backed up because of the results of that hurricane. He finally got it all to me. I finally got all that out, and now the run that's going in January is the one we're on right now. And like I said, in early January, I will announce we're doing another run for the Nighthawks, the Blackhawks, and etc. And all of it. And I'll let everybody know. But it'll be starting, excuse me, y'all, sometime beginning of January. Okay. Woo. Okay. Will, does Uberti make a revolver without the retractable firing pin? If you're talking about in like the 72 open top and stuff like that, that will have a hammer mounted firing pin. Some of them do and some of them don't. I believe my Richards conversion has a firing pin, I believe, but I'm not sure. It just depends on look at them. And if you ever see the breech face, you'll know if it's got a firing pin in it or it's a hammer. It's a firing pin. Each one has advantages there. True. Yeah, Benjamin, if you think you are, you're welcome to come on in. Is there a minimum age for a silver wolf? No, sir. Come on in. If you want to learn, we've had 25-year-olds come because they have a grandfather that they spend time with, and they're wanting to learn from us things that they can help them stay active with. So feel free to come on. Miss Pam is correct. If you're using fillers, make sure you add the weight of the filler to the bullet weight when calculating charge. Correct. Because you don't want to have too much weight for the acceleration, especially in modern high performance ammunition where it is such high pressure all at once that projectile's got to go, and I mean go now, to get out of the way, because the case can't hold that pressure if the projectile don't get out of the way. And so a filler adds a little more braking power, and you've got to consider that. Otherwise, it'll go poof, and that filler and that bullet can't get out of the way, and you get ruptured cases. So, but Miss Pam is correct. It's in modern guns, high pressure, high performance. You got to get real particular on those type things. Gray Wolf, yeah, 6.5 Carcano, just long. You know, I wonder. If you look at the World Book of Cartridges, at one time, okay, at one time, I believe it was the 260 Remington cartridge could be fire formed into a Carcano. Gray Wolf. It might be something there you could look at. If you'll, those books are available. You can get them off Amazon and eBay, but Cartridges of the World. And usually they're not very expensive because most people, they don't know what they're looking at. But you can look up that 6.5 Carcano, or that cartridge you're looking for, the 54, and see what it's easily made from. You know, might be something that readily available brass you can pick up that you could get a set of dies to go with it, and you're set. You know, fire form it. Yeah, but Bill Nye, Pyrodex is a Class C flammable, same as any smokeless powder. In fact, it is a smokeless powder. It's just been formulated to work in our muzzleloaders. Black powder is a Class A explosive. And it's amazing to me they still allow us to buy it, because it is a Class A explosive, just like dynamite. Whereas all the Pyrodex and all the alternatives are Class C flammables, like modern smokeless powder, and are actually, quote, quote, safer to utilize. So it's pretty amazing to me they still let us get black powder. Yeah, Andrew, I'm hoping it isn't going to be too much. But that bad weather coming in, that's where the jet stream dipping down, just sucking it right off the Gulf. That's that river of moisture running through Texas. We've seen it. Good night, good night, Charles. And we got to kind of keep an eye on it. Shoe Nice 22. Does Alabama have marijuana smoking hotel rooms? No, it is not legal in this state. It may be legal in medicinal for doctor to prescribe it, but there is no place where it is legal to utilize it in this state. You got to go to Colorado or something for that, openly, so to speak. YouTube ruins your video with hellish audio tracks in different languages. It sucks to deactivate this every time. Don't do this anymore, please. I hear you. If I can figure out how to block this stuff, I sure will do it. Sorry for the inconvenience. It doesn't say nothing on my side. When they first started monetizing this, they'd pop up a little timer over on the corner and tell you. But you could also opt out of monetizing just because you didn't want to do it. And I never wanted to do it. I just wanted to talk to you guys. And that's gone now. And so they're doing their stuff behind the scenes. And it doesn't give you a whole lot of controls on this side to kind of dig through. So y'all may see Blackie pop up in the middle of the night. And it's not really alive. If it says this is not alive, don't even bother clicking on it. It's where I'm bringing it up, trying to figure out these new controls and trying to find some way to shut it down. So just let y'all know. Tennessee Smoky, Blackie, you did a video a long time back on a 3-blade trapper for small game. What was the brand name on it? It was a Marbles 3-blade trapper that had it. Red handle, 3 blades, and it was by Marbles. But I got it from Smoky Mountain Knife Works, and I truly believe it was probably a Rough Rider that Marbles was putting their logo on because it looks just like a Rough Rider. Tim Pierce, question, why stay with YouTube if it's such a pain? YouTube is a subsection of Google, and they are a monopoly. They control all of it. The recent ruling where Google was found guilty of this is they were telling the people advertising, if you go and advertise on Rumble or some other platform, you can't advertise on us. And they're 90% of the market. So I go post videos over on Rumble. And over a year and a half, I've earned a grand total of $14 on Rumble. YouTube, you're making something you make a living off of. And so it was YouTube doing that, Google doing that. And so you really, if you went over, you can, but you're not going to make any money on it. You're not going to be able to do it. And if I was doing it where I wasn't planning on it, making a living out of it, because this is what helps me to have the money to be able to go to these events and etc. and be able to afford to buy stuff to be able to show to you guys. You know, I'm not a man of means, so I have to kind of work this game. But it's kind of like the old crooked card game they talked about in the West. We all know it's rigged, but it's the only game in town. Now, if that changes, and I am seeing, like I said, Google was found guilty of you do have a monopoly, and therefore they're right now discussing what to do about that. And they've talked about breaking it up. Oh, they can't do that. Yes, they did. Bell Telephone used to be, there was one telephone company in the United States, period, in discussion. That was Bell Telephone. And they ruled, they had a monopoly. And overnight, they broke it up into 26 smaller companies that had to compete with each other. And Elon Musk has already said, if you split YouTube off to be a separate entity, I'll buy it. And it would truly be fair, and you would truly be able to earn a living off of what you're doing, because you're getting about less than 10%. So if I make $2,000 in a month, they made $200,000 off of me in a month. You're roughly getting less than 10%. And so, but it's the only game in town. So, Will, Blackie, is there any perks to being 100,000 subs? Yeah. At 100,000 subs, you go over a certain Bridgewater, so to speak. and your videos will be shared a little more readily. Right now, and so this is the thing that hurts people like Dave Canterbury and Sean Kelly and all that's got these huge channels, much bigger than me, is I produce and post out a video. They share it to just 10% of my followers. So 100,000 followers becomes 1,000 followers or 10,000, 10%. That's it. And so based on their response and how well they respond, then they'll share it with half your audience. And based on theirs, then they'll share it with the whole audience. But you only get 48 hours. And after that, the video kind of drops out of play and we don't even pay it any attention anymore. It's dead as far as they're concerned. And so when you're talking about like Sean and them has got 1 million followers, he's not sending out a video to 1 million people. He's sending out a video to 100,000. I'm sending out to 10,000. So if I get 8,000 or 9,000 views on a video, that's really good, and that's why but once you click over that link, they share a little bit bigger pie. That's it. Paul, okay, you're talking to Jeff, not me. Yeah, y'all like to talk. Oh, it is past 2 hours, ain't it? Okay. All right, guys. Thank y'all so much. I guess it is 2 hours, and I normally do 2 hours, and y'all done got me off on a tangent, so we done gone over 7 minutes. And I need to go take something to make this stop dripping. But guys, thank y'all so much for tuning in. I greatly appreciate it. And I will be on next Thursday night. And that will be what, 1, 2, like the 2nd or 3rd of January. So hope to see y'all then. Till then, guys, be safe. God bless. Safe journeys, everybody.